Today I've got a wild story about a husband whose wife wanted to open up their marriage, and now she's drowning in regret. Hey everyone. Never in my life did I think I'd end up here, typing my story for strangers to read, but here we are. My name's Ethan and my wife Rachel, and I have been together for 10 years, married for 8. We met back in college, both of us awkward but drawn to each other instantly. We were each other's first everything, first kiss, first love, first time. I always thought that made us special. I believed it meant we shared something pure, untouched by all the chaos most couples go through. I really thought what we had was rare. Turns out, I might have been the only one who felt that way. A while back, Rachel started a new job at a design firm in Brentwood, a mid-sized city not far from where we live. The first few weeks, she struggled to fit in. She's always been the quiet, reserved type, but after some nudging from me, she started hanging out with a group of coworkers. A few were single, a few divorced, and the rest were in casual relationships. At first, I was honestly happy for her. Rachel had never had a big social circle, she'd always kept to herself. But then slowly, things began to change. She started going out for drinks after work. Then it became weekend parties, girls' nights, and spontaneous road trips. I tried not to be that controlling husband who nags or forbids his wife from having fun. But something about her energy shifted. The woman who used to spend evenings cooking with me or binging shows on the couch started coming home late, laughing at texts from people I didn't know. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd just wave me off. Our intimacy took a nosedive. Rachel had never been particularly wild in bed, but at least there used to be a spark. Now, every time I tried to touch her, she'd say she was exhausted or not in the mood. Then came the new project manager, a guy named Daniel. He joined the firm about 6 months into her new job, and suddenly, Rachel couldn't stop mentioning him. It started innocently enough. Daniel handled the client meeting so well today, or Daniel brought donuts for everyone. But then I noticed she'd bring him up even when it made no sense, like comparing how he problem solves to how I handle things around the house. I called her out on it once, jokingly at first, but she brushed it off. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "He's just a colleague." Around that same time, she began asking me strange questions, things like whether I regretted only being with one woman my whole life. I told her honestly no. I loved her, and she'd always been enough. She smiled at that, but I swear for just a second, I saw this flicker of sadness, or maybe guilt in her eyes. Then came the bombshell. One night, we were having wine, and she casually dropped, "Have you ever thought about an open marriage?" I nearly choked. Rachel had never been the type to talk like that. She'd always been conservative when it came to sex, shy even. I asked her if this had anything to do with Daniel, and she immediately denied it. She said she'd just been thinking about life, about how she'd never had experiences before me. That she loved me but didn't want to live with regrets. She called it a safer way to explore. Something inside me screamed that it was a terrible idea. But another part, the naive desperate to please part, didn't want to seem controlling. I thought maybe if I agreed, she'd see that what we had was enough. So, I said yes. We set rules. No bringing other people to our home. Total honesty. We'd both have freedom but keep each other informed. It sounded structured, safe even. But reality doesn't work like that. Over the next year, Rachel went on dates. She'd come home late, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. She'd tell me she stayed at a friend's place or that she was too drunk to drive. I didn't need to be a genius to know what was really happening. And of course, as I'd feared, it wasn't long before Daniel became more than just the boss she admired. Meanwhile, I went on a few dates myself, mostly out of obligation. But every time it got close to something physical, I'd freeze. It just felt wrong. Until I met Mina, a woman who'd recently moved here from South Korea. She was everything Rachel used to be, curious, kind, sharp as a blade. Conversation flowed easily. When we finally did sleep together, it was like waking up after years of being half dead. Mina made me feel wanted, alive, confident. At first, Rachel thought it was amusing. "Ethan has a girlfriend now," she teased. But as weeks turned into months, her tone shifted. She started asking questions. Who was Mina? How serious were we? I reminded her this whole arrangement had been her idea. She didn't respond. Just stared at the floor, lips pressed together. Then suddenly she changed. Rachel started coming home early. She cooked dinner, cleaned, even started dropping by my workplace with lunch. She began initiating sex again, something she hadn't done in years. If this had happened before, I'd have been overjoyed. But now? It felt forced. Hollow. I barely participated, And when I did, it was mechanical, like scratching an itch just to get it over with. One night, she asked why I'd become so distant. I asked what caused her sudden burst of affection. She said she wanted to show me she loved me, that she was happy with me. I laughed. I didn't mean to, but I did. A sharp, bitter laugh that hung in the air. Happy with me? I asked. What about Daniel? What about your little adventures and your one-night stands? Were those part of being happy too? She didn't answer. She just cried silently, turned, and went to bed. The next day, she sat waiting for me when I got home. Her eyes were swollen red. I want to close the marriage, she said. This was a mistake, all of it. I was stupid, and I want us back. I asked her to be honest, truly honest, about where this all came from. Turns out, her friends had planted the idea. They'd brag about their escapades, calling it empowerment. When Daniel came along, he encouraged it too, told her she was missing out on life, that she should embrace her freedom. At first, she said, it was emotional, harmless flirtation. But once we opened the marriage, that boundary disappeared. It felt thrilling, she said, like driving drunk at full speed. Now she says she sees the crash, the wreck she caused, and she can't live with the guilt. She told me she quit her job, blocked her old friends, and even offered to spend the rest of her life proving herself to me. She said she'd work her fingers to the bone to earn my forgiveness. But I couldn't say anything.
Because the truth is, Mina savet me.
When Rachel broke something inside me, Mina brought it back. And now, I don't know what to do.
Rachel wants to rebuild. I want to feel whole.
But I can't pretend the past didn't happen, or that the woman who destroyed our marriage can just sew it back together. We have our first counseling session in 2 hours. The therapist seems nice, calm, neutral. Maybe she'll help us find clarity.
Maybe not.
The therapist's office smelled faintly of lavender and books. Rachel sat beside me, clutching a tissue so tight her knuckles were white.
The therapist, Dr.
Linwood smiled gently and said, let's start with honesty. Rachel didn't hesitate. She poured everything out like she'd been holding her breath for months. She said her group of co-workers in Brentwood had filled her head with ideas about freedom, about how being with only one man was like missing the world. She admitted that at first, she didn't even believe half of what they said, but the repetition, the laughter, the stories, they got to her. Then Daniel showed up, charming, confident, effortlessly witty, and he validated everything her friends had been preaching. He told her that love didn't have to mean restriction. That true partnerships were built on trust and exploration. And because Rachel had always been cautious, always careful, she mistook his manipulation for enlightenment. She told Dr. Linwood that nothing physical happened until after we agreed to open the marriage, but emotionally, it had started long before. It felt like electricity, she said. Like discovering color for the first time. I sat there, listening, jaw tight. The therapist nodded and asked, and when did that color fade? Rachel's eyes welled up. When I saw him with someone else. When I realized I was just another experiment to him. Dr. Linwood turned to me. Ethan, what about you? How do you feel toward Rachel now?
I hesitated. Empty, I said.
Like something in me broke. I don't hate her, but I don't see her the same way. She was the safest place I'd ever known, and now she feels like the reason I can't trust safety anymore. Rachel started crying again. She said she wanted to fix everything, that she'd never forgive herself. I mentioned Mina, told the therapist that I was still seeing her. That Mina had been the only person who made me feel human during the worst time of my life. The therapist sighed softly. Ethan, as long as Mina is still part of this equation, there can be no true healing between you and Rachel. It's like trying to stitch a wound while the knife's still in it. She wasn't wrong. We agreed to schedule another session in 2 days, but the silence in the car afterward was suffocating. Rachel reached for my hand at a stoplight. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. That night, I slept on the couch. A week later, I moved into a small apartment my brother owns on Cedar Lane. He offered it to me for next to nothing, but I insisted on paying something, pride I guess. The walls were bare, but it felt like I could breathe again. At our next session, I decided to stop holding back. I asked Rachel directly, were you sure nothing happened before we opened the marriage? She looked down, trembling. Please don't make me say it, she whispered. I stayed quiet. Tears began falling, her voice barely audible. It wasn't physical, not fully. But we touched ourselves. In front of each other. Even the therapist froze. Rachel's sobs came in waves, shaking her whole body. He told me it wasn't cheating.
That it didn't count.
That we were just appreciating each other's beauty. I felt something inside me collapse. Not explode, collapse. Quiet, final. She slid off the couch and onto her knees, clutching my legs, begging for forgiveness. Snot tears, shaking hands, it was all raw, humiliating. The therapist intervened, trying to calm her, but all I could think was, this is who my wife became. When she finally calmed, I asked, what made you stop? She said after she started distancing herself from the group, Daniel changed. One night, she said, I was walking past his office after a meeting. I heard him talking to another guy.
Her voice cracked.
He said he was surprised how easy it was to get me. That I was proof you can't trust the quiet ones. And that I was just a distraction, that he'd never leave his fiancée. She said she ran out of the building, vomited in the parking lot, and sat in her car shaking. That was the night she realized she wasn't empowered, she was used. Then she whispered something that hit like a bullet.
I never stopped loving you, Ethan. Not once.
I thought I was missing something. But it was all a lie.
I didn't answer.
Later that day, she asked if I'd consider moving somewhere new, starting over, just us.
Like before, she said.
Before all this.
But I told her it wouldn't be fair, not to her, not to me, not to Mina. That broke her.
She started sobbing again, clutching my shirt, whispering apologies that sounded like prayers. The therapist eventually stepped in, saying maybe time apart could help us heal individually.
I agreed.
That same evening, when I returned to the apartment to pack some of my remaining things, Rachel's laptop pinged with a video call. It was one of her old friends, the one who had pushed hardest for the open marriage. She was crying. Apparently, after Rachel quit, that friend started seeing Daniel herself. And then she thought she was pregnant. That's when Daniel turned into a monster. He accused her of baby trapping him, sent cruel messages, and when her boyfriend found out, he dumped her. The friend said she thought Rachel had somehow fixed her marriage and wanted advice. I couldn't even look at the screen. I just grabbed my bag and left. For a while, I went numb. Routine was the only thing keeping me functional.
Walk, gym, home, sleep. Mina was patient.
She didn't push, didn't ask me to choose.
She just listened.
But then came the next update, the part that made everything feel like a soap opera. The friend really was pregnant, but the stress caused her to miscarry. And she didn't take it quietly. She went scorched earth, exposed Daniel to HR, to upper management, even to his fiancée. Out of curiosity, I looked up the fiancée on social media. Her name was Emily, a special needs teacher from a small coastal town. Sweet, family-oriented, the kind of person who posts dog pictures and Sunday dinners. And this man, this smug, manipulative coward, had cheated on her too. Rachel's former friend reached out to me again. She wanted to collect evidence for HR. She asked to meet in person, saying she'd already tested negative for COVID. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When I met her, I barely recognized her. She looked haunted, dark circles, hollow eyes, trembling hands. She thanked me for coming, apologized for everything, and said she didn't want to shift blame. She said losing both her child and her boyfriend shattered her. I can't even look at myself in the mirror, she said. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face when he found out. She told me Daniel would likely be fired and blacklisted from the firm for misconduct, but she might lose her job too.
She said she didn't care.
I deserve it, she said flatly. When she left, she thanked me again, like I'd done her a kindness just by listening. A few days later, I went back to the old house to grab a few boxes. I planned it for when I thought Rachel would be gone.
She wasn't.
She was sitting in the living room, surrounded by photo albums and wedding pictures scattered across the coffee table. Her eyes were red and puffy. When she saw me, she stood quickly, like she'd been caught. Ethan, wait I told her I wasn't staying long. She tried to hug me, I stepped back. She offered to make lunch, I said no. Then she said, I have something to show you. She handed me her phone. It was a message from Daniel, a long, furious rant from a new number. He called her names, accused her of ruining his life. She said she'd help her friend expose him to HR and his fiancée after reading advice on a marriage recovery blog called Chump Lady. She thought that by dragging the truth into the light, she was taking away its power. I told her I was proud she did it, but it didn't change anything. Then I told her I was ending the marriage counseling. I'd continue therapy alone.
She broke down again.
I understand, she said between sobs. But what scared me most was that I didn't feel anything.
Not anger, not relief. Just nothing.
That's when I realized I was probably done. I told her I'd talk to a divorce lawyer, just to know my options. Her face went pale. Before I left, she tried to stop me, grabbed my arm, her voice rising. "What does she do for you that I can't?" she shouted. "What does she give you that I don't?" I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see my wife.
I SAW stranga, desperate, broken, entlost.
If you still don't know, I said quietly, then that's the answer.
And I valket out.
In the weeks that followed, the silence was both a blessing and a curse. My phone barely buzzed, my world became small work, gym, Mina, sleep. The apartment on Cedar Lane felt more like home than the house Rachel and I had shared for 8 years. I tried to convince myself that this quiet meant peace, but deep down, I knew it was numbness disguised as calm. Rachel tried contacting me a few times, emails, short messages, even a letter slipped under my door.
I didn't answer. I needed distance.
I needed to breathe without feeling the weight of her guilt pressing against my ribs. One night, Mina and I were eating takeout on the floor, watching some old Korean comedy show. She turned to me and said softly, "You don't laugh with your whole face." I asked what she meant. She smiled sadly. "You laugh here," she said, pointing to my mouth, "but not here," and tapped her temple.
Or here.
Her hand moved to my chest.
She wasn't wrong.
I told her I still had counseling sessions on my own, and that I wasn't sure where any of this was going.
Mina nodded. "You don't have to know," she said.
"You just have to be honest with yourself, not just with her." That line stuck with me. In therapy, I told Dr. Linwood that I'd filed for legal separation. Not a full divorce, yet just space recognized by the court. She said it made sense, that I was setting boundaries after years of erosion. But she also warned that running away from pain doesn't erase it. "You have to grieve the person you thought Rachel was," she said. "Otherwise, that ghost will haunt every future relationship."
Grieve her.
I'd never thought of it like that. Rachel wasn't dead, but the version of her I loved might as well have been. A month later, I heard from my brother that Rachel had started volunteering at a women's shelter downtown. She'd left social media, cut ties with all her former co-workers. Apparently, she'd even returned to using her maiden name, Rachel Moore, at work applications. She'd become someone I couldn't recognize, a ghost of herself, but one trying to crawl back toward the light. Then, one Saturday morning, she showed up at the apartment. I opened the door and there she was, standing in the hallway with a small cardboard box in her hands.
"Please," she said quietly.
"It's not what you think. I'm not here to talk you into anything. I just want to give you something." Inside the box were printed photographs, old letters, and a silver pendant I'd given her on our first anniversary.
She'd cleaned it.
It shone like new. At the bottom of the box was a note in her handwriting. "For what it's worth, I loved you with all I knew how." I just didn't know how little that was. I didn't have words. I just nodded, and she turned to leave.
No drama, no tears.
Just quiet closure, or something that resembled it. But peace didn't last long. 2 weeks later, Rachel's former friend, the one who had exposed Daniel, called me again. She sounded frantic. Daniel had been fired, but he was threatening legal action, claiming defamation. Apparently, he'd been engaged to Emily the entire time, and Emily's family had filed harassment complaints after he showed up at her workplace demanding to talk. The company had launched a full investigation into multiple inappropriate relationships he'd had with subordinates, and now his career was basically over. He was furious and unpredictable. The friend wanted to warn me that he'd been asking around about Rachel and me, saying he wanted to clear the air. I told her to block him, and I did the same. Rachel called me the next day, her voice trembling. "He emailed me from another account," she said. "He said he knows where you live." I felt a chill run down my spine. I told her I'd handle it and reported the message to the police. They took a statement, but said unless there were direct threats, they couldn't do much. Still, they put a note on record. Nothing else happened, thankfully, but for weeks afterward, every time I walked to my car, I found myself glancing over my shoulder. During all of this, Mina was supportive, but quiet. One night, she said, "Ethan, I think you should take time to be alone." Not with her, not with me. Just alone. She wasn't angry, just matter of fact. "You need to rebuild who you are outside of both of us." I didn't argue. She deserved someone who could give her more than a half-healed heart. When I told Rachel that Mina and I had paused things, she didn't gloat. She just said, "Maybe that's good for you." Her voice had changed, less pleading, more grounded. She'd been seeing her own therapist, apparently. She told me she'd been diagnosed with situational depression and had started medication. She said it helped her see things clearly. She admitted she'd once romanticized freedom, but now realized how enslaving selfishness could be. I thought independence meant doing whatever I wanted, she said. But real freedom is being able to love someone without destroying them. It was the most honest thing I'd ever heard her say. By spring, the paperwork for our separation was finalized.
Rachel kept the house.
I didn't want it felt tainted, like every wall whispered what we'd lost. I kept my car, my savings, and the quiet. One evening, I went back to collect a few last boxes.
The garden weht plantet ihrs Argo was overgrauen wild.
The wind chimes I'd hung on the porch still played softly. Rachel was there, sitting on the steps with a mug of tea. She looked up and smiled, not the kind of smile that asked for forgiveness, but one that simply acknowledged the moment. "Do you remember when we planted those?" she asked, nodding toward the hydrangeas by the fence.
"Yeah," I said.
"You wanted blue ones, but the soil made them pink." She laughed quietly. Maybe we just weren't meant to control the color. We talked for a while about small things, work, her volunteering, my brother's kids. It was strangely peaceful. For a fleeting second, I saw the girl I met in college, the one who used to draw on napkins during lectures, who'd get lost in thought watching rain on the window. When I got up to leave, she stood too. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling just slightly. "Thank you, for at least listening back then. For not turning into someone hateful."
"I was close," I admitted. She nodded. "I know.
That's why it means more." As I walked away, I realized that I didn't hate her.
I didn't even pity her.
I just accepted that our story had run its course.
A few months later, Mina reached out again.
She asked how I'd been. I told her the truth: I was better, still healing, still figuring things out. We met for coffee, nothing romantic, just two people sharing quiet understanding. She told me she was moving back to Seoul for a new job opportunity, and that she wanted to thank me for not pretending to be okay when I wasn't.
"You were honest," she said.
"That's rare." After she left, I stood outside the cafe for a long time, watching people pass by, couples holding hands, friends laughing, strangers lost in their phones. I realized that for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was drowning. Sometimes healing doesn't look like reconciliation or revenge. Sometimes it's just learning to live again without bitterness. Rachel still sends a Christmas card every year. Simple, handwritten, signed, "Wishing you peace."
Nothing else.
I keep them in a drawer, not because I can't let go, but because they remind me that love, even when it fails, doesn't have to turn into hate. Dr. Linwood once told me, closure isn't a door that slams. It's a slow drift.
She was right. Therese, no big finale, no fireworks, no last kiss under the Rhein.
Just quiet acceptance, the kind that grows roots in the spaces pain once lived. And that's where I am now, somewhere between what was and what's next.
Not bitter. Not hopeful. Just, okay. Maybe that's enough.